guys, what we are chatting about today is ratio. So does anyone want to raise their hand to tell me what a ratio is? What is ratios? What is ratios? What are ratios? Why do we use them? Tell me something about ratios. Like I say, you can raise your hand or you can just put it in the chat if you would prefer. Anyone? Wanna share? Yasha, sorry.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
At school, our teacher told us that a rate refers to the frequency by which a certain event happens, while a ratio refers to the relationship between size, number, or degree, I think.
Holy moly, that is an in-depth definition. Okay. I'm not even sure I fully got all of that. So I'm going to ask if you can send me a message with that, just so that I can understand that better in my head.
Okay,
but I'm enjoying the relationship. It's talking about relationships. That's good.
yes,
all right, so guys, I'm going to go off that. And essentially, that's what a ratio is. Ratios allow us to compare two or more values, because we can have more than two numbers in a ratio. But importantly, they must have the same unit. If they don't have the same unit, we can't compare them. And you'll see what I mean by the same units now as we sort of start to go through examples. Bulele's, yes, guys, my English today, my words today, Bulela has put on the chat there a nice definition. A ratio is a comparison of two or more quantities of the same type. So you could say same unit or same type. We're talking about liters being compared with liters, milliseconds compared with milliseconds, meters compared with meters. They are the same unit. They're representing the same unit of measurement, unit of time, whatever it is that we're talking about. Alrighty, so an important thing to also remember is that a ratio is not the same thing as a fraction. They're quite similar to each other, but they are not the same thing. When we write down a ratio, it is with a colon. So for example, if I gave you the ratio 2 is to 5, we need to be writing that with that colon in between the two. And this is saying I have 2 parts to 5 parts in my ratio. Again, we're going to chat about what all of this means in a second, but a ratio is written with a colon. Remember, fraction has a numerator and a denominator. Excuse me. Right, I don't know if you want to take a screenshot of this, but I'll hang on for 2 seconds in case you want to. And then we're going to start to have a look at some examples, representations of ratios. Alrighty, so let's have a look at some examples. So I don't know how many of you drink Oros or even like Energade or anything that's a concentrate. If you go and have a look at the back of your bottle, or even like Milo, really anything that you have to mix into water or into milk or something like that. If you look at the back, it always tells you like the quantities that you should mix. So Oros's mixing recommendation is in a ratio of 1 part Oros to 3 parts water. Now, remember we've said that these units are the same. So this can be transferred to any unit depending on how much Oros you want to make. So if you're just making Oros for yourself, you could say that you're going to use 1 cup of Oros and 3 cups of water. If, for example, you were making Oros for an entire sports team or entire choir or an entire, why can I not think, class or whatever, You might want to make 1 liter of OROS with 3 liters of milk. Oh, that would be disgusting. 3 liters of water. And so your ratio can be scaled to however much you want of something. So if, for example, you wanted a teeny tiny cup of OROS, you could say 1 teaspoon of OROS with 3 teaspoons of water. I don't know why you'd want such a small amount, but you could. The point of a ratio is that you could scale it to whatever you want. All right, so when given a ratio, it is giving you information about how these values work together, or how these values compare to each other, what their relationship is, etc., etc. Oh, excuse me. Right, so Zintley's put another definition there on the chat, and we are eventually going to talk about rate, so this will come into rate as well. But Zintley said there, we use ratios when we want to compare quantities of the same type, same unit, but when you want to compare 2 different types of measurements, or 2 different quantities, or with the different units, we use rate. We are going to chat about rate, so don't worry, we will get there, but also very nice definition. Well done. I know my glasses are dirty, we're just going to move with it. Alrighty, guys. So that is essentially what a ratio is. Now, another very important aspect of ratios is that whenever we are writing ratios, we always want to make sure that our ratios are written in the correct order and they're simplified. I started scrolling a bit soon. If anyone wants to take a screenshot of this, now is your time to take a screenshot before I move on. Right. So like I was saying, another very important part of ratios is that our ratios are written in the correct order. Now, I could give you anything. You need to read the questions carefully. So let's say, for example, I asked you for the ratio of Coke Zero to cream soda. When you write down that ratio, the order must be exactly that. The number that you write first must represent how many Coke Zeros you have, and the number you write second must represent how many cream sodas you have. So if we go back up to our diagram, we can see that we've got 6 Coke Zeros, if you just count how many cans you have, and 8 cream sodas. So now when we write down our ratio, we will write the 6 first, because that relates to the Coke Zero, and then we will write down our 8 relating to the cream soda. Now, we don't stop there. Whenever we are working with ratios, similarly to when we work with fractions, we always want to simplify our answer. If it isn't simplified, you will not get full marks. And we simplify it in very much the same way as we do with fractions. I need to figure out what I can divide both of these values by. I know I can divide 6 by 2 and 8 by 2, and that gives me 3 is to 4. It gives me a simplified ratio, but it still represents exactly the same thing. And if you don't agree with me, let's see why that's true. We can see that this 3 comes from the Coke Zero, because these Coke Zeros, you can see, are fitting into 3 equal blocks, each with 2 Coke Zeros in each. Still represents the same number that we had initially. If we have a look then at our cream soda, we've got 4. These 8 cream sodas are in 4 blocks. It represents the same thing as what I initially had. Even though it's a simplified ratio, it still represents the same proportions. And so, excuse me, very importantly is order in which we write our ratios down, as well as always simplifying. If you didn't simplify here initially, don't worry, we're going to do examples where we simplify, but just have it in the back of your head that simplification is very, very important. If, for example, I had given you a different order, so I had said cream soda to Coke Zero. Now we have to be mindful of where we're writing our numbers. The cream soda was 8 and the Coke Zero was 6. So now we've got 8 is to 6. we know we would need to simplify this by dividing both of them by 3. And so we would get a simplified ratio of 4:3. Now again, order is important. The ratio 3:4 is not the same thing as the ratio 4:3. It represents different parts of whatever it is that we're talking about. And so your order in which you're writing down your answers must correlate to the question. If I asked you for those ratio of Coke Zero to cream soda, you would write 3:4. If I asked you cream soda to Coke Zero, you would write 4:3. So remember, order in which you write your ratios down is very, very important. Right, so I'm just going to wait there in case anyone wants to take a screenshot here. And then we're going to start having a look at simplifying some ratios and how we go about doing it. Okay, I'm hoping we've all got our screenshots. Let's have a look at some examples. Right, so all we want to do to start off with is to simplify the ratios that I'm giving you here. So let's start with the first one and then we go from there. Our first ratio is that of 9:21. Now, very similar to how we just simplified the first ratio, or that example that we had with the cream soda and the Coke Zero, we need to ask ourselves, what can we divide into both 9 and 21? So I know that I could divide 9 by 3, and I can divide 21 by 3. As long as you are dividing both of them by the same amount, you should accurately simplify your ratio. Now, when I divide 9 by 3, I get 3, and when I divide 21 by 3, I get 7. I can't divide any further, I can't simplify any further, and so my ratio simplifies to 3:7. And so all we're doing is we are finding essentially a common factor between our numbers, and we are simplifying like that. So I want you guys, because you're clearly on it tonight, I want you guys to try question B for me. Put your answers in the chat, and let's see what we come up to simplify the ratio of 20:32. Remember to fully simplify. If we don't fully simplify, we're not going to get full marks, and we don't want to lose marks for something silly like that. Right, would anyone like to raise their hand to explain for us, I don't know what's happening, how they did this? Recipe Lab, help me out here.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
So if you say 20 divided by 4, you will get 5. And if you say 32 divided by 4, you will get 8. The ratio is 5:8.
Perfect, well done. So exactly, guys, we can divide both of those values by 4, giving me a simplified ratio of 5:8. Now, again, order is very important that you write this down. So just take note of the fact that in your original ratio, you had the smaller number first, which means in your simplified ratio, the smaller of the two values should be first. Otherwise, your order or your ratio is not going to mean or not going to represent what it needs to mean. Very, very nicely done, guys. Please just remember to mute yourselves when you have answered or asked a question. Let you try question C. I just want to respond to Umfa's question there in the chat. You need to divide it by 2 again, Umfa. If you just divide by 2, you will get 10 is to 16. Both of those can still be divided by 2. So you divide by 2 twice, but essentially just keep dividing until you can't anymore, because then you've simplified fully. So Didintle, that should answer your same question. So grade 8, you're trying question C, which now is the ratio with 3 numbers. So you have to find a number that divides into 12, 16, and 4. While you're trying that, if anyone has any questions they want to ask me, now is the time to do it. Hold on, grade 8. Keep those answers coming. Velo, question? Velo. Alrighty, would anyone like to raise their hand to help me with this one? Chantal?
Good morning. Good evening, ma'am.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, ma'am. In E, I said 12 divided by 4, which I got 3. And I said
Good.
16 divided by 4, I got 4.
Good.
And I said 4 divided by 4, I got 1.
Excellent, well done. So our simplified ratio, 3 is to 4 is to 1. Well done, Chantal. Alrighty, guys, now just quickly to go back to what I was saying earlier about you keep dividing until you can't anymore. And this will hopefully answer Zintle's answer there on the chat. Or Zintle is working out there on the chat, sorry. If you have the ratio 12 is to 16 is to 4, and your first instinct is to divide everything by 2. So we divide 12 by 2 to give us 6. We divide 6 by 2 to give us 8. And we divide 4 by 2 to give us 2. Whilst not wrong, you have not fully simplified. You have not fully simplified because these can all still be divided by 2 again. And you have to keep going until you can't anymore. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Gabby, I hope you're listening because I'm explaining why we need to simplify this. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So it takes us to exactly the same answer. All you're doing here is you are giving yourself 2 steps of simplification, which is fine. It's okay if you need to do it step by step, but make sure that you are always double checking whether or not you can simplify further. Leaving your answer as a ratio of 6 is to 8 is to 2 is not fully simplified. You will not get full marks. You need to divide it by 2 again. Right, so I'm going to let you screenshot those just because otherwise we're going to start to get quite small on our screen here. And then we're going to have a look at our next example. Okay, so guys, the same thing would apply for question B. If you initially, as I've already said, if you initially only divided by 2 and then you saw you could divide by 2 again, that's fine, but make sure you divide by 2 again. So you keep dividing until you can't divide anymore. Okay, so I hope that answers the questions of earlier. And for those asking if 6 is to 8 is to 2 is correct. You're halfway there, but you need to go that step further. Right, so guys, I'm about to put in question D, and in the chat, I want you to tell me what is my first step, or what is the first thing I need to deal with in question D? I can't just go straight to simplifying. What is the first thing I need to deal with? So in the chat, take a look at D and tell me what the first thing is that you think I need to deal with here. Shauna's on it. Okay, Shauna, do you want to raise your hand and tell us what we need to do? Yes.
So you have to say 1 hour is obviously 60 minutes. So then you're going to say 36 minutes to 60 minutes. Shall I do the sum?
Yeah, that's fine. Keep going.
And then you're going to say 36 divided by 4 is 9. and then 60 divided by 4 is 15. And then you're going to simplify that by dividing, Mommy wrote 14 instead of 15.
Yeah, as I looked at it, I was like, that's certainly not right.
And then you're going to divide them by 3, and then you're going to get 3 minutes to 5 minutes.
Okay, good. So this is again Shana explaining to us why you don't have to do your simplification all in one go. You can do it step by step. If you saw that you could divide both of them by 12 right at the start, that's fine. If you divide 36 by 12, you get 3. If you divide 60 by 12, you get 5. That's okay. Right, so first things first is we needed to convert. Remember we said that if we are working with ratios, we must have the same units. Now you can convert your minutes to hours, or you can convert your hours to minutes. My advice is convert the bigger unit to the smaller unit. Just because if you go bigger to smaller, you are going to avoid decimals and fractions. And we don't want decimals and fractions in our ratios. We always want positive whole numbers. So what we want to do is we want to convert the units. So again, I've given you the advice of convert the bigger unit to the smaller unit. So we want to go from hours to minutes. We know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. And so this is why my 1 hour becomes 60 minutes. From there, your units are now the same. We can see that we've got minutes and minutes, which means now I can start my process of simplifying this ratio. Again, you need to figure out where you can simplify, but you need to simplify fully. So if, like Shana, you first divided by 4 and then by 3, that's fine. If you saw that you could divide both of them by 12, that's fine. If you divided by 6 to get 6s to 10, that's fine. But remember, both of those can still be divided by 2 again. So your final answer is not 6s to 10. Your final answer is still 3s to 5. Okay, so just so we're all clear, if you went 36 to 60 and you divided them by 6, you get 6 is to 10. But you still need to divide that by 2 again, giving you 3 is to 5. If you stop at 6 is to 10, you are not fully simplified. You need to go that step further. All right. So make sure you are fully simplifying. There was a question about how you convert minutes to hours. I will explain that to you now in a second, and you'll see why I don't recommend you doing that. But guys, convert your bigger units to your smaller units, and you will then be able to simplify your ratio. Right, I'm going to show you how to convert minutes to hours just because it is a useful thing to be able to do, but I don't recommend it. Reason is because then you're converting a smaller unit to a bigger unit, and then you're going to get decimals. So whenever you want to convert from minutes to an hour, you will divide by 60. If you want to go hours to minutes, you will times by 60. So here, if you want to take 36 minutes and convert it to hours, you would have to divide that by 60. And that will give you a fraction of 3/5. Now, we don't want to have to work with fractions. That's not ideal. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to us, especially in a ratio context. So I would avoid it, but your conversions are here. Minutes to hours, you divide by 60. Hours to minutes, you will times by 60. Right, so take your screenshots. I think we're at that time for a brain break. Zintle. Yes, that's fine. You've done multiple simplification steps, but you've gotten to the answer in the end, and so absolutely fine. And you'll see if you actually take everything that you have divided by, you divided by a 2 again, a 3, 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. So you end up there anyway. Motabang, yes, it is because an hour has 60 minutes. So that's why we work with that division and multiplication of 60 because of how many minutes there are in an hour. Good, well done. Right, I'm hoping we've all got our screenshots. Brain break. Oopsie. So brain break's a little bit different today. We've got some riddles.
Yeah.
And obviously your math stroke as per usual. So let's see how many of you can do these riddles. Our other class was quite on it with the riddles. I am not a riddler, I'll be honest. But let's see how many of you can get them. So you've got 5 there. I want to know what each of those things are.
Let's go.
Oh, Sipisihle, have you already got one?
Yeah. Ma'am, I think it's a leap year, ma'am.
For which one?
I'm not sure, but ma'am, I was guessing.
Okay, you're on the right. I mean, at least you're thinking, at least you're trying it. So just remember, leap year involves February. So here we've got, I belong in the month of December, but not in any other month. I am not a holiday. What am I? Didn't have you got an answer for one of them?
Ma'am, for number 4, I think it's gloves.
Good. Okay, so number 4, I'm not alive,
Done.
but I have 4. I have 4 fingers. Ooh. I have 5 fingers. What am I? Exactly as Didn't said, it's a glove. Well done.
I think also Kisha Ndovu got number 5. It's plates.
Nice.
Okay.
Well done. People
Well
buy me to
done.
eat.
You're like
You
getting
never
them.
eat me. It's a plate. Well done.
Puzi got number 2, which is soap. Yes, my people. I like
This is
getting
so
them
good.
right. Let's go. How many do we have left? We have 2 more left, guys. We can do this.
I suppose for number 5, you could also have a spoon or a fork because you don't eat your spoon or your fork, but you do buy it to eat. So yeah, I feel those. Right, Nompumelelo, well done. So number 3, what can be seen once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years? You've got 1 M in a minute, 2 M's in a moment, and no M's in 1,000 years. So this would be the letter M. Nice. So we're just missing number 1.
Let's go. Number 1 is actually close to number 3, if you think about it. Yes. The Zoom user. You got it right. Well done. Congratulations. Well done, my
Nice.
kids.
So December is the only month with a D in it, and so exactly the letter D. Well done, guys. You are on this. I wish I was like you. I remember getting these at school when my teachers also tried to give these to us, and I was just like, nope.
Me too. I'm a fan of them when I know the answers. I'm not a fan when I don't know the answers.
Yeah, exactly. Nice, grade 8. Well done. Okay, that was a very quick brain break. So if you want to just have a quick stretch for 30 seconds, move your body, and then we will carry on. October doesn't have D either, unless I'm just missing completely the point. Oh. I think Didintle is going to be our stretch master, and now she's run away from us.
Oh yeah, there she is. She was stretching.
Yeah, Didintle had like the neck stretch going on. She's going to lead us in our stretches.
We are selecting you. You are our grade 8 standard class stretching instructor to every single one in class. So next time we will unmute you so you can take us through the exercise. Now,
right.
Omomlemo, it's time for maths. Maths.
I think I just need to make the brain break harder next time or not give you riddles. Okay. Sweet children. Let us continue on. Lawrence, before I move on, the quizzes are only on Wednesdays. Forgot what I was trying to say there. Only on Wednesdays. Oh, October's the only one with the letter O. November. I was panicking there for a second. Alrighty, guys, let us continue onwards on this journey we have brought ourselves on. So another really important part of ratios is being able to divide a given quantity in a ratio. Oh, starting with O. Yes, indeed. Well done. Okay. So ratios, let's get ourselves back to that. We want to divide the quantities that I've given you according to a ratio that I have specified. Now, guys, there's lots of different ways that you can do this, and most of you will probably do it the second or third way that I'm going to show you, but I'm going to give you options because it's always good to have options to be able to answer these questions, especially because we all understand things differently. So the first way that we can think about this is, what is this ratio representing? Well, it's saying that two parts, or that I have two parts and I have three parts to my ratio. And somehow I need to split 250 Rand up across those 5 blocks. So altogether, these 5 blocks represent my 250 Rand. So what I want to do is I want to figure out how much one block represents in terms of rands. Now, all I can do is if I want to get one block, its ratios, I can divide by 5. And so 250 divided by 5 is 50 Rand. And so every one of these blocks here that I've drawn represents 50 Rand. And now that I know what each block represents, I can very easily go and split my money. So this is now telling me that the 2 blocks is 100 Rand, as a lot of you have said, and my 3 blocks is 150 Rand. And so I have managed to split my 250 Rand in the ratio 100 Rand to 150 Rand. So if a visual sort of understanding or representation of these ratios is better for you, excuse me, then use blocks, draw out the ratio, draw out what it represents, and use it like that. Now, you don't have to. I understand that this is not for everyone. This is how I like to do ratios personally, but that isn't necessarily the way everyone likes to do it. And so another way to do this is basically with the blocks, just not drawing the blocks. So what's very important with ratios is that we always know the total, or we always want to know the total number of parts that we're working with. And to get our total, we will take the numbers in our ratio and we will add them together. So the total number of parts I'm working with here is 5. That's where I got the 5 blocks from. I know that my 250 Rand is represented by those 5 blocks or 5 parts because this is a ratio. And so I can work out that 1 part to my ratio is equal to 50 Rand. Very similar to what we said in our second step over there. Now I can work out how to divide this 250 Rand. 2 parts is 2 times 50, which gives us 100 Rand. And 3 parts is 3 times 50, which gives us 150 Rand. And so again, we've got the same ratio. 100 Rand is to 150 Rand. Now, this method is very much like the block method, just without drawing the blocks. So if you're not a huge fan of drawing blocks, don't draw blocks. That's absolutely fine. But as long as you know the total number of parts that you're working with, you should be able to divide your ratio. And once again, not the only way that you can do this. Some people like to work with fractions, and this is okay because fractions and ratios work very closely together. So once again, we want to know the total number of parts that we're working with, because we need to know what our denominator of our fraction is. And again, it's 5, just by adding the numbers in our ratio. Now we know we've got 2 parts out of 5 that we're working with, and we've got 3 parts out of 5. I now need to figure out what 2/5 or 2 parts of 5 is of 250 Rand. And you can just type that into your calculator. That gives you 100 Rand. We also need to know what 3/5 or 3 parts of 5 is of that 250 Rand. And again, typing that into your calculator, or if you can do it in your head, that's cool as well, is 150 Rand. And so once again, you get exactly the same ratio of 100 is to 150. So all 3 of these methods, grade 8s, give you exactly the same answer, slightly different depending on how you understand ratios, but they all work and they all give you the correct answer. So you need to decide what works best for you, and that is the way you're going to do it. So I'm going to let you take a screenshot here, and then I'm going to ask you to try one by yourself. And you must use the method if you are more comfortable with. Molemo, I see your message. That is absolutely amazing. Well done. Phenomenal work, and it's all your hard work, so you can give yourself a definite pat on the back. Very well done on working so hard. Okay, guys, I hope you all have the screenshot. I want you to try question B, which I'm getting there. Pick the method that works for you. Draw your blocks, use your totals, use fractions, whatever you want. I will, no teacher should ever tell you you have to do it a specific way. You do it the way that makes sense to you, and you will get the correct answer. So give question B a try, see what you come up with, put your answers in the chat, and then we're going to have a look. So question B is asking you to divide 750 grams in the ratio 6:7:2. So I've left the 3 methods up there so that you can see how we did the last one. So you can refer back to it. Excuse me. Give it a try. Let's see what you come up with. Ooh. And remember, guys, when you're dividing a quantity according to a ratio, we are not simplifying. The ratio is already simplified. We just want to divide up a value according to our ratio. And that is why the instruction does not say simplify, it says divide. Keep those answers coming. You guys are doing really nicely. Right, does anyone want to raise their hand to explain how they did this? Dalo, do you want to help us out here?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, I first started by adding the 6, 7, and the 2, which gave me 15. Then I said 6/15 multiplied by 750, which gave me 300. And then the 7/15 multiplied by 750, which gave me 350. And then I said 2/15 multiplied by 750, which gave me 100.
Then my final answer was 300 is to 350 is to 100.
Excellent. Well done. So beautifully explained. Thank you, Dalo. All right, guys. So Dalo's chosen to use the third method that I showed you. So just in case we're all a bit confused, the third method that I showed you was where you worked out your total and then you wrote them as fractions and you worked out what part it was of the whole. Now that's fine. No problems there whatsoever. For those of you saying you don't understand, I want you to listen to my explanation that I'm about to give carefully, and hopefully this will make sense. All right, so if you use fractions, that is absolutely fine, and your ratio is 300 to 350 to 100. If you aren't a huge fan of the fractions, which is also absolutely fine, let's see another way that you could do this. So again, what we would need to know is the total number of parts that we're working with. And as Ndalo said to us, that is 15. So what we could do is we could say, okay, we know we've got 15 parts. We need to divide our 750 grams into those 15 parts to figure out what one part is equal to. Now, 750 divided by 15 gives you 50. So every part that this ratio represents is 50 grams. So now you've got 6 parts as the first part of your ratio. And so we would say 6 times 50, which gives us the 300 grams that Ndalo said. You have 7 parts. So you would have 7 times 50, which gives us the 350 grams that Ndalo said. And then we've got the 2 parts. And so we would say 2 times 50, which gives us the 100 grams that Ndalo said. So either way that you do it, you're still getting a ratio of 300 grams to 350 grams to 100 grams. Now, guys, you don't have to put grams into your answer because remember, the whole point of a ratio is that all of the units are the same. So because we've given you grams in the question, we automatically assume that each of these are in grams. You don't have to put the unit there. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So here in question A, I did put the rands in, but I didn't have to. All right, so if you aren't a huge fan of the fractions, that's fine. Work out your total, divide the total by the amount you're wanting to divide according to your ratio, and then you just multiply each part of your ratio with that value. So the 6 in my ratio, I times by the 6 parts, the 7 in my ratio, I times with the 7 parts, and the 2 in my ratio, I obviously times my 2 parts. Okay, so basically the same thing, but just set up slightly differently. Resibile, your hand is up. Is there a problem?
No, ma'am, I wanted to do the sum.
Okay, do you agree with the answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, well done. Alrighty, guys, I'm hoping that those of you who were struggling to understand, this now makes sense to you. If you drew the blocks, that's absolutely fine as well. You would have gotten that each block is 50 grams, and then you just work out how much it is. Completely up to you. For no, we are not having another brain break. We've had our brain break. Alrighty, guys, take your screenshots. I don't know if you need a screenshot of A, so let's just make that a touch smaller, just in case you do. So you can screenshot both at the same time, and then we're moving on to some more examples. Yeah, people screaming and singing outside, and I don't really understand why. But anyways.
We can't actually hear it.
I'm so glad. I wish I even, because if I knew what they were screaming and shouting about, I could be more invested. But I have no idea. It's just noise. Okay, guys, I'm hoping you've got those screenshots. I'm moving on. All right, so earlier I said that often what happens with ratios is that we've got a lot of words sometimes that we need to deal with. And so we need to be able to read questions A, carefully, and B, with understanding to figure out what this ratio is that they want here. So I'm going to read this with you. Tanuetu cuts a 24 centimeter long piece of wood into 2 pieces. So let's just ignore the second sentence for a second and visualize for ourselves what this is. We have got a piece of wood, and the whole piece of wood is 24 centimeters. I am cutting it into 2 pieces. I've got a shorter piece that is 7 centimeters. So there's my shorter piece, which is 7 centimeters. And then I've got my longer piece. It is asking me, and this is now where order is very important. It is asking me to find the ratio of the shorter piece to the longer piece. So my first value in my ratio must be the shorter piece, and my second value in my ratio must be the longer piece. That is what my ratio needs to say. Right, so there's a couple things that we need to go and work out. We know that our shorter piece is 7 centimeters because they gave it to us. Quickly on the chat, can you tell me how long the longer piece of wood is? If you know the whole thing is 27 and you know the shorter piece is 7, how long is the longer piece of wood? Good, grade 8s. So we would take the total, we would subtract the shorter piece, and we would get that the longer piece is 17 centimeters. So now I know my longer piece is 17 centimeters. Now that's important for me to know because it's telling me to find the ratio of the shorter piece to the longer piece. I know my shorter piece is 7. I know my longer piece is 17. I can't simplify that because nothing divides into both 7 and 17. And so I have got my ratio of the shorter piece to the longer piece of wood. Sorry, guys. So when you are, let's not say confronted, that sounds a bit aggressive. When you are given a problem, as you, okay, I need to just have a cough, sorry. Who knows what's happening? All right. When you are given a word problem, for lack of a better description, you need to read your question carefully because often there is information that you still need to work out, like we had to do here with our longer piece of wood. And you need to read carefully to figure out what order your ratio needs to be in. If you had written your ratio down as 17 is to 7, that's wrong. It is not then the shorter to the longer piece of wood. And so you haven't given the ratio that was asked. So we need to be very, very careful when we have word sums like this, that we are reading them carefully. Right, so we've got 2 minutes. I'm going to ask you to try. Yeah, let's try question B. So question B says, I'm just going to leave example A up there. Question B is saying that Shana bakes 30 chocolate chip muffins and 16 blueberry muffins. She then apparently backs, she doesn't. Let me just fix my spelling here. She then bakes another 18 chocolate chip muffins. So if we just quickly go to what we have here, we've got chocolate chip muffins and we have got blueberry muffins. Chocolate chip, she made 30 initially and then she made another 18. The blueberry, she only made that initial 16 and that was it. I am asking you to find the ratio of the number of chocolate chip muffins to the number of blueberry muffins when she had finished all of her baking. That is very important. All of the baking done, how much does she have chocolate to blueberry once she's baked everything? Remember, simplify your ratio. Remember, like I said, sometimes there's a little bit of extra working out that you might need to do before you get to your answer. And so I'm seeing some good answers so far, but remember, simplify. We always, always, always want to simplify answers, guys. We don't simplify, we're making an oopsie. I think I've seen one simplified answer so far. Okay, so guys, our chocolate chip muffins, just because I don't want to miss out on the poll, we've got 30, and we've got 18, which means we've got a total of 48 muffins once she's finished all of her baking. The blueberry muffins, Shana made 16, and then that was it. She clearly didn't like blueberry muffins. I clearly don't either because I can't spell that. Blueberry. So at the end, the chocolate chip muffins to blueberry muffins. So we need to have chocolate chip first, then blueberry, was 48 to 16. Now I don't leave my answer like that. I need to simplify. Both of these can be divided by 16. Yes. And 48 divided by 16 is 3. And we know that 16 divided by 16 is 1. So she had, if we look at what this ratio is actually saying to me, she had to triple the amount of chocolate chip muffins than she did blueberry muffins. And again, this is what a ratio does. It gives me this relationship between values. So I'm going to leave that there for you to screenshot.